A warm welcome to all of you. Today we are discussing about nervous system part 2. I hope all of you learned the earlier videos. Thank you, children. We can continue the nervous system. Basic terms in nervous activity. These 5 terms are very important in nervous activity. They are stimulus, receptors, impulse, effectors, response. These all terms definition of these terms are very important in examination. We can study in detail. Stimulus. Here's what is stimulus. Stimulus is an agent or sudden change of an external or internal environment. Yes, is an agent or sudden change of an external or internal environment. What is the result of that? That results in a change in an organism. Because of this agent or sudden change of external or internal environment, there is a change in an organism or any of its body parts. Then that agent or that external internal environment, we call it as stimulus. Then this is the definition of stimulus, very important. Then we can see here in this picture, yes, there are different types of stimulus we can see here. Sunlight is a stimulus, right? Then here cold, hot, heat is a stimulus, right? Then these are the different types of stimulus you can see. Then here you can see sunflower is facing towards the sun. Then sunlight is a stimulus here, right? Then like that, the external factor or internal factor or any agent that we can say, that is the stimulus. Next important term, that is receptors. Receptors are the specialized epithelial cells which receiving the stimulus set up waves of impulse towards the central nervous system. Then example for receptors, that is photoreceptors. Photoreceptors, example rods and cones. These are present in the eye. Then these photoreceptors receive the light, stimulus. Light is a stimulus. Then set up wave of impulse towards the central nervous system. Then there are different types of receptors we can see in our body. Phonoreceptors are there that receive sound. Olfactory receptors receive smell. Then any other receptors do you know? Thermoreceptors. Thermoreceptors receive temperature. Then chemoreceptors receive chemicals. These are the different types of receptors present in our body. The next term, that is impulse. What is impulse? Impulse is a wave of irritability or the electrical disturbance sweeps over the nerve cell. Here you can see is the electrical disturbance sweeps over the nerve cell. How it will happen? It is happening due to stimulus, activity of stimulus. Then when the sensory receptors receive the stimulus, then these receptors will transfer stimulus into the nerve cell or neuron. But when it will enter the nerve cell or neuron, that will be in the form of impulse. That will be in the form of wave of irritability, or we can say electrical disturbance. That we call it as an impulse. The next important term, that is effectors. What is effectors? muscle or gland. Here you can see effector muscle. Muscle or gland which receiving the impulse. Which receiving the impulse from the brain or spinal cord, and it contract or secrete substances. Yes. Then this muscle or gland we call it as effectors. Muscle or gland. Then that will receive the impulses from brain or spinal cord. Yes, through the nerves or through the neuron. These muscles will receive impulses from brain or spinal cord. This is the diagram of spinal cord. Then from that it will receive impulses and then it will contract or secrete substances. That is called effectors. The next term, that is response. What is response? The change in an organism resulting due to stimulus. Yes, we can see here, if we touch fire, then our hands will move up very fastly. We will take our hand very fastly. How it will happen? That moving hands up, that we call, that is response, right? This is how it will happen. If we touch the stimulus, heat is the stimulus, then the receptors will receive the stimulus that will enter into the neuron or nerve cell in the form of impulse. Then that will reach the nerve, is this spinal cord or brain. Then from that is through the nerve cell, it will reach the effectors. Then effector will contract or secrete substances. Then finally response will occur. Yes, that change in an organism resulting due to stimulus, the main cause or main reason for this response, that is the stimulus. It's a very sudden change. Transmission of nerve impulse. Here we are discussing how the nerve impulse or wave of irritability moving through the neuron or nerve cell. How do this nerve impulse move through the axon membrane? Here we are discussing that this nerve impulse will move from one region of axon to another region. In the resting condition or in the normal condition, the outer side of the nerve fiber carries positive charge. The inner side carries negative charge. This resting condition, we call it as polarized state. In this stage, more sodium ions will be outside the membrane. Then, on stimulation, here you can see, on stimulation, the axon membrane, this is the diagrammatic representation. On stimulation, the axon membrane at that spot become more permeable. Then the positive sodium charged sodium ions will move inward and cause loss of polarization. That stage we call it as depolarization. Then that area become excited area or excited region. Because of that is permeability, positive charged sodium ions move inward. Then the point of depolarization, this is the point of depolarization, become the stimulus for the next neighboring area. Then that membrane, that area become depolarized, that become more permeable. Yes, then that will depolarized. Here you can see the next neighboring area become depolarized. Yes, then what happens to the previous area? The previous area become the normal stage, or it will attain the normal stage, or polarized stage. That we call it as repolarization. How this repolarization will occur? Yes, that is due to the active transport of sodium ions. Again, these sodium ions move outside due to active transport. That we call it as sodium pump. Sodium pump. Then this sodium pump is due to active transport. Active transport means the transport of ions through the semi-permeable membrane using energy through ATP. That energy is given by ATP. Then due to active transport, the sodium ions again move outward. That we call it as sodium pump. Then this is wave of irritability or nerve impulse passed from one region to another in this way. Okay, then finally it will reaches the brain. In this way, the nerve impulse move from one area of neuron to another area or one neuron to another. Conduction of nerve impulse is a wave of depolarization followed by repolarization. It's very important. Fill in the blanks question. Conduction of nerve impulse is a wave of depolarization followed by repolarization. It's very important. Next very important term we have to know, that is synapse. Synapse is a sure question in examination. Synapse is the point of contact between the terminal branches of the axon of a neuron with the dendrites of another neuron, separated by a fine gap. We already learned that fine gap we call it as synaptic cleft. That point of contact between terminal branches of the axon of a neuron with the dendrites of another neuron is called synapse. That point of contact is very important. The point of contact is called synapse. As the impulse reaches the terminal end of the axon, a chemical, you can see here, we already learned that the neurotransmitters, that are chemicals present in the axon endings. Then as the impulse reaches the terminal end of the axon, a chemical acetylcholine is released. Then this acetylcholine is helping for the transmission of impulse from one neuron to another neuron. What is the function of acetylcholine? Acetylcholine is a chemical or neurotransmitter is produced in axon endings. This chemical sets a new impulse in the dendrites of the adjacent neuron. Sets a new impulse in the dendrites of the adjacent neuron. This is the adjacent neuron, dendrites of adjacent neuron. Then this chemical, when this impulse will pass from one neuron to another, yes, this chemical soon broken down by an enzyme to make the synapse ready for the next transmission. The synapse is ready for the next transmission. What are the different types of neurons? Three main types of neurons we can see in our nervous system. First one, sensory neuron. It conveys the impulse from the receptor. Here you can see, yes, this is sensory neuron. This will convey impulse from the sense organs or receptor to the main nervous system. What are the main nervous system? Is brain and spinal cord. These are the main part of nervous system. Then what is the function of sensory neuron? It will convey the impulse from the receptor to the brain or spinal cord. The next one, motor neuron. Here, this is motor neuron. This will carry impulse from the main nervous system to an effector. We already learned that what is effector, muscle or gland. Then it will carry the impulse from main nervous system, that is brain or spinal cord, to an effector. That is the function of motor neuron. Then the third one, association neuron or connecting neuron. Here you can see it is located in the brain and spinal cord. It will be in the brain or spinal cord, which interconnect the sensory and motor neuron. These two neurons connecting with this association neuron or connecting neuron. We call it as different terms are there, interneuron, or we can say relay neuron, etc. That is association neuron. We can say this will interconnect sensory neuron and motor neuron. What is a nerve? Nerve is a bundle of nerve fibers of separate neurons enclosed in a tubular sheath. Here you can see so many nerve fibers. Then these all nerve fibers enclosed in a tubular sheath, that we call it as nerves, which emerges from the brain or spinal cord and branch out to almost all parts of the body. These nerves are emerges from the brain or spinal cord. There are mainly three kinds of nerves we can see in the nervous system. First kind of nerve, that is sensory nerve. These sensory nerve contain only sensory fibers. Then what is the function of this sensory nerve? It will bring impulses from the receptors to the brain or spinal cord. Yes, that is called sensory nerve. For example, optic nerve. Optic nerve is an example of sensory nerve. This is arising from the eye and ending in the brain. Then we can say another example, olfactory nerve, then auditory nerve. These are the other examples of sensory nerve. The next type of nerve, that is motor nerve. What is motor nerve? It contains only motor fibers. Then the function of motor fibers is carrying impulses from the brain or spinal cord to effector organs. This is the area of brain. From the brain, this motor nerve carrying impulses from the brain or spinal cord to effector organs, muscle or gland, to bring them into action. Example, a nerve arising from the brain and supplying the muscles of the eyeball. Here you can see is for rotating the eye. The third type of nerve, that is mixed nerve. It contains both sensory and motor nerve. Example, spinal nerve. Spinal nerve is an example of mixed nerve. This contains both sensory nerve and motor nerve. Ganglia. Ganglia are the aggregates of the nerve cell or cell bodies from which the nerve fibers may arise or enter into. Then these aggregates of nerve cell or cell bodies are called ganglia. Revision. Exam-based questions and answers we are discussing here. Name the following. Wave of electrical disturbance that sweeps over the nerve cell. Impulse. Point of contact between two nerve cells. Point of contact between two nerve cells, that is synapse. A bundle of axons enclosed in a tubular sheath. Nerve, the kind of nerve carrying impulses from brain to a gland or muscle. Motor nerve. Define the terms. Synapse, motor nerve, mixed nerve, sensory nerve, nerve, sodium pump, stimulus, response, ganglia. These all terms are very important for examination. We already discussed that. You can go through the earlier slides and thorough with this definition. Functions of the following. First one, acetylcholine. Acetylcholine helps to transmit impulses from one neuron to another neuron. It is a neurotransmitter. The next one, motor neuron. Motor neuron transmit impulses from brain or spinal cord to the effector. Sensory neuron. It will transmit impulses from receptor to brain or spinal cord. Association neuron. It will interconnect sensory neuron and motor neuron. Categorize the following under stimulus and response. First one, withdrawal of hand on touching a hot plate. That is response. Seeing a green light turning into red at a road crossing before it applying the brakes. Stimulus. Pain in the eye if something fall into it. That is response. Thank you children. Subscribe my channel. Have a good day.